Uh, Brian Busco came by and wrote a little pamphlet that says that this planet has lost the bad ETs, and it's up to us to heal the atmosphere. Now, the Illuminati is trying to destroy our atmosphere because they want basically they wanted to take an artificial intelligence and develop it. And of course, the Temple of Sakkara from day one has been about saving free will on the planet. And we have done a lot of that. We stopped Y2K. They built a big dome in London's harbor, the size of two football fields. They were going to try to move Stonehenge over to that dome and control consciousness on the planet. We have prevented all of that. And we have a pyramid system that is totally connected to all the pyramids. And the earth is a motor. And what happened at the end of Atlantis, this is according to Ken Killick, the Great Pyramid over the North Pole got exploded, cracked the earth, and the Great Pyramid was built as a wheelweight to keep the planet in orbit. Now, all the technicians that had the rods of Ptah built the Great Pyramid, and that is why we are the Sisterhood of the Emerald Green, because when you use the rod of Ptah, you use your heart chakra, and your arms and body glows green. The same is true of the Marys. When they did their healing from the heart, their arms would grow green. That is why we are the Sisterhood and the Brotherhood of the Emerald Fire. If any of you have questions, just raise your hand, because I want you to know this history. Okay? Now, the people went to Sakkara and built the Great Pyramid. And after it was built, they kept it as a school. That school taught you how to use your consciousness so that I could remember Doug was there, right, Doug? And we were left there all by ourselves, over 100 of us, because the buses pulled out. And we were standing on the monuments, and we were performing things. And I remember standing in front of a window, and that window suddenly got a field in it. And that field, I had to control my consciousness or I got zapped. And that is how they trained people. You had to learn to control your mind completely. Because if you had a rod Ptah and you thought a bad thought, you could zap somebody and kill them. So you had to learn to control your own consciousness. And that's why you had the Temple of Sacrifice and the Temple of Beauty. The Temple of Sacrifice was sacrificing your desires, your ego, and the Temple of Beauty was growing so that you could become a manifestation person. And that is why the Temple of Sakkara asks you to learn how to do alchemy. Alchemy is a simple technique which you change the energy, you change the manifestation of the mass. In other words, in homeopathy, it's alchemy. They reduce everything to energy, and that heals the body because it changes the frequency. Everything is frequency. Is it, Gayle, do you want to say something?
Uh, Go ahead. Yes,
Go ahead.
it is.
Well, the crop circles and how they're put to like cures like,
That's good, Linda.
and so we don't have to think about the COVID anymore, but using whatever crop circle comes in can be used to help with whatever's happening right now, correct? And where's the blood?
Well, the first crop circle that appeared at the Little Bighorn uh, in Colorado. And the reason it appeared is because Yellowstone is a volcano. and was about to erupt. So you can imagine they put a crop circle about 100 miles away at the Little Bighorn, which is a natural upshoot. And what way would natural upshoots have to operate? Anybody know?
Clockwise.
Clockwise. That is why all medicine wheels are clockwise. You put a clockwise medicine wheel in, connect it to under the Yellowstone, and pull that energy up through that crop circle. Now, one morning, I got up to do the Holy Grail Vortex, and as I stood in front of the obelisk, Sitting Bull was sitting out there, and I said, "Why are you here?" And he said, "To save the sacred land of Yellowstone." And he had ghost dancers. Now, ghost dancers are Indians that dance in a clockwise manner. So they were dancing in a clockwise manner around him. That was pulling the energy from under Yellowstone up through that medicine wheel. Can you visualize that? And that's why all medicine wheels are in a clockwise manner. It's important that you know how to use the energy of the Great Pyramid and medicine wheels and labyrinths.
Let me interject a little. So, Sitting Bull came and was slinking the energy, taking the energy that was building up under Yellowstone and slinking it over to this property because the pyramid and the obelisk were able to transmute it. So it was like the slinky toy going back and forth, balancing out the energy, and that's what Mary saw and what we experienced. So the caldera actually calmed down the day after Sitting Bull appeared to Mary here on the property. So it was going to different medicine wheels and places on the land, on the earth.
Anywhere he wanted to send the energy, he sent his dancers.
Yes.
They went to the volcanoes, they went all over.
That slinky effect is the same thing that in Arkham.
You want to stand up?
I was
Yeah.
just saying the slinky effect she was just referring to is the same thing I was just talking about on the grid, this new diamond arc, they're calling it. But it has that effect, and there's a lot of
Now you have to have a downshoot receptor and an upshoot receptor to make it slink.
Yes.
it's being built now, so I don't know, but I'll look into that and I'll get back to you on it.
Yeah. Otherwise,
So-
it won't be effective.
See, so what I want you to understand is the Sitting Bull, the medicine wheel, was built at the Little Bighorn, and it was connected to the caldera. Now, as he had his dancers dance around, that activated the caldera and pulled the energy over to the medicine wheel. Now, here he had the medicine, he was sitting here, and he was having his dancers dance around. Now, mentally, he had connected to the medicine wheel. So he was pulling the dancers over here. Now, this is a downshoot obelisk. So he could pull the energy here, bring it up, and send it out down through the ground if he wanted to. But he had to have an upshoot receptor and a downshoot receptor. You follow what I'm saying? And downshoot receptors travel which way? Counterclockwise. So what's important right now is, I don't know, but I have been told, that, especially when Brian came by, that they are trying to destroy our atmosphere by starting fires in Canada and burning poisons in them. And it's very, very important that we learn how to transmute those fires. Now, when you get into your frontal lobes, do people know how to use their chakra system to get into their frontal lobes? You take a deep breath, you go to the amygdala gland, This is a spiral breath. Do you want to take it
Yes.
over for a minute?
Okay.
Talk about your spiral breath.
So the amygdalas, they sit on either side of your third eye, and they come off of the limbic system. And the limbic system sits, it's in the middle. It's like the vesica piscis. It's in the middle of the two lobes. And it's sacred geometry and 153. And the amygdalas just kind of hang off looking like this. So I'll step over here. Okay. And so, the right one responds to negative thought processes, the left one to positive thought processes. So, when you are bombarded and in thought, the right amygdala starts to bend down. And then it can get locked. So, some people it's pointed down towards the floor, and sometimes it's pointed all the way to the back of the skull. When it's shifted off of center, then you will get locked into repetitive thinking, into lack of self-worth, into destructive thought processes, into that negativity, and it's that constant worry, fear, and things like the spiral breath and breathing techniques. I like the spiral breath because that healed my brain and reconnected my body. But breathing techniques, breath is energy, and it moves through and it connects the body. So essential oils do the same thing. Tuning forks. I have the tuning fork that I place. I like the sounding tuning forks, and then the ones that are weighted, so it's just the vibration goes through. I will tap that and put it on the amygdala to vibrate. And people who come into my office that have that are stuck into fear, whatever emotional issue they're dealing with, they usually move through and get a break from that thought process or that energy as soon as the tuning fork gets put on the amygdala. So whether you're using breath, essential oils, you're using frequency tools, you're using positive thoughts, however you choose to activate your amygdala, you visualize that amygdala coming back online. And as soon as it comes back to point out through the forehead, you oftentimes will hear a little inside the head, and then you know you've locked in. So T.D. Lingo taught this, and he did many techniques. He did breath work, but he also had people imagine that you're being brushed with a feather, and that will give you that very light sensation. For me, when my amygdalas get activated, I start to feel a little whirl, a little buzz in my forehead at the amygdalas, and then the third eye gets engaged. Some people don't feel anything at all, but for me, I know when I have that whirl, then my chakras are lined up and the energy is flowing. So doing the breath work, doing the Holy Grail Vortex, doing your prayer work, all of that, and visualizing, because when you visualize, that is energy. So you can add other things to facilitate your visualization. The oils, I love the oils. Young Living, we believe, are the purest. We are a Young Living family. And there are the oils of ancient scripture, all pass the blood-brain barrier. All those oils pass the blood-brain barrier. Divine gave us those oils to heal our brain. And it is sulfur, Angela, and you can find a lot. Dr. Gary Young, or Dr. David Stewart and Gary Young, Gary Young founded Young Living. They called the compounds in the essential oils the chosen ones, because they carry the main compounds in all the essential oils: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, sulfur, and nitrogen. And that balances the brain, it balances the body and the nervous system. And it's why you can use an essential oil and you can move out of emotional trauma. And the blends that Gary Young put together do exactly what they say, not just because that's the name across the bottle, because the ingredients and the essential oils that are blended and the proportions that are in there actually facilitate on an energetic level the healing of that emotion. So, using essential oils is really powerful when you're clearing the body and activating the limbic system. So, also too, if you look at those old pictures, you see the little cherubims, and they have the little horns coming out, and people said, "Oh, those are devil children." No, they're not. Those are little cherubims that have activated their amygdalas, and their light is coming out of the amygdalas and painting them. Then is how they showed. And so, if you knew about the amygdalas and you knew about divine light and activating that within yourself, so it will also generate. And one of the reasons too that you see the halos, because it's not only from the crown chakra, it's from the amygdalas.
How many of you remember a man that came here 16 years ago on his deathbed? That was Gandalf. How many remember coming here? What did he teach us about? What?
Yeah.
What kind of brain? The glia cells.
And Galadriel is here. Shirley, can I ask you to go into the green room and ask Galadriel to come out and join us? Go into the green room in the schoolhouse and get Galadriel. Just open the door and say, it's time. Thank you.
How many have heard of the amygdala, of the glia brain? Now you have two kinds of brain matter, white matter and gray matter. The glia brain operates on 85% of the brain. And right now, I felt I had not been taking stuff like essential fatty acids to feed the glia brain. The glia brain is 85% of your brain. And I was in terrible pain. When I started taking essential fatty acids and magnesium, you know what happened to the pain? It started to become, I'm able to use it, live with it. Otherwise, it was terrible. So, you see, medicine, I'm a little bit older than most people, but when I was growing up, every morning my mother gave me cod liver oil. How many have heard that? Why was cod liver oil given? To feed the glia brain, to feed the white matter. In 1937, Melvin Fishbein was hired as a clown, but he was a doctor, to destroy the knowledge about the glia brain. And you ask a doctor right now, 15% of the brain is only the gray matter. That's all medicine works with. So what they do to get rid of pain now is they block the glia brain. And that causes eventually pain. So pain can go away. And I have a friend named Frank who has a terrible pain. And I just talked to Dr. Smiley, who's a dentist, to get him, I sent him MindWise, which is an essential fatty acid. I'm going to have him take magnesium and then collagen. And that will take the pain away. And that's what we have to learn. You know, we have a connection to cannabis. You want to?
Before you go into cannabis? So with the essential fatty acids, one of the reasons, if you remember in the late 70s, early 80s, they came out with this big push that we needed to have unsaturated fats, that the saturated fats were bad. And it was a marketing tool to get you to use the unsaturated fats, which actually then created a lot of the disease process that is taking place. But it interferes and it stops the essential fatty acids from rebuilding the cell walls and feeding the brain. So they actually created a lot of illness with unsaturated fat. So anybody using canola oil, there's no canola plant. It's an acronym for oil from Canada, because we banned rapeseed oil, and that was Canada's #1 export to the United States. So to appease them, they genetically modified the rapeseed plant and then put it out as canola oil. So just use organic olive oil, organic avocado oil, organic coconut oil, and hemp seed oil is also good. So avocado has your highest flash point. So if you're going to do anything with high heat, use avocado. Olive oil has a lower flash point, so you can use that for salad dressings. You can take coconut oil. MCT is the medium chain triglycerides. It's also in MindWise from Young Living. You have to be careful with sunflower oil because most of it is genetically modified now. So
You have a question back there?
you have to take care of sunflower oil. Yeah. Grapeseed, that's usually good, but go for organic. And you now have to really research the companies that of the food that you're getting because FDA has allowed people to say it's natural and it's organic if it's organically grown, genetically modified plants. So you really have to research and know the companies that you're buying from.
Gladra, do you want to come up here?
While she's going, I just wanted to say that, I think they know that a lot of us know about canola oil, and if you watch your labels, now a lot of them are using rapeseed.
Yes,
It's the organic
they're
rapeseed
switching.
oil.
Yeah,
It's
there
still
is
the
no.
lowest
Rapeseed
energy
with
you
an
can
R.
There's Gladra's here.
Yes. So, did you want to come up now that you sat down and got comfortable?
Leslie has a question.
Oh, Leslie, yes, I'm sorry. Why?
Hang on, can you wait for the mic, please, Leslie? I'm going to have you repeat your question.
Come on, Gladra.
So magnesium comes in many different forms. So,
Yes.
what form of magnesium are you recommending?
Oh, yes. So each type of magnesium reaches a different part of the cell. So ideally, there are a couple brands that are out there that are good and clean that have all 7. So those are ideally the best. I use magnesium glycinate. It's a little more gentle. I use that in my office. It's very powerful, and I mix it with vitamin C, ascorbic acid, because the magnesium allows the vitamin C to get into the cell. So I sip on that throughout the day. I usually have about 4,000 milligrams of vitamin C and 250 to milligrams of magnesium in water, and I sip on that throughout the day. So throughout the day, I get a little. It's a constant trickle of high potency vitamin C, which won't give you the flush, but it allows the body to heal itself because you're constantly introducing vitamin C as the body depletes it. You introduce it throughout. So do your vitamin C, get a good quality. Make sure it says ascorbic acid, or some say ester C, because what you're saying no.
No, my pharmacist was, because I'm allergic to corn, my pharmacist kind of went down the rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to use ascorbic acid most of the time in the United States because most of it is made from corn.
Right.
Most of it is genetically modified.
Yeah.
You want to use an ascorbate.
Okay. So what Judy said, and thank you very much, is that we don't give Judy the mic. We love you. Yeah. So what Judy said was that a lot of the ascorbic acid is corn-based, so you want to use ascorbate, B-A-T-E, acid.
I'm going to change the subject a little bit right now.
Yes, and then we're going back.
This is Gladra.
Yes?
Her husband's given name, her family name was Palumbo, right?
Right.
When Dean grew up, Palumbo and Dean lived right next door. And when Dean met Gandalf or Jerry, he said, you know, that guy burned my car up, burned my So that's how close this family really is.
Gandalf pointed out it was his sister that did it, not him.
What did you say, Galibra?
Gandalf said it was his sister that did it, and she confirmed that with me. She said, I didn't want to play with matches, my friend made me. Anyway, they were talking to each other for a while here, and then realized, wait a minute, yes, you're the kid that burned up my car in Auburn and lived next to each other. Yeah, so we're on paths, right? We're on paths, and we find each other.
Some fires.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring that little bit in. Basically, I don't want to get into a chemistry
Yeah.
contest.
Because we're here for the
Basically,
glia.
I just want to. When we read TDA lingo, we get into our frontal lobes. And in our frontal lobes, we transcend time, space, energy, and matter. Now, I took Bruce out to the Federal Communications. In the 30s and the 40s, there were 3 monetary stations located in the United States. One is located 9 miles from the center of our etheric pyramid, which is created by John's pyramids, my pyramids, the dam, and the airport. So we can get into a higher frequency and transcend time, space, energy, and matter. Now, when Jesus went to a wedding, he was asked, his mother said, this is not my wedding. His mother asked him that there wasn't enough wine. So what did he do? He changed through the frequency the water to wine. These and greater things you can do also. Now, the pyramids themselves are orgone energy generators, and you have the whole earth motor behind that to use. Unfortunately, we have, because of what Dean did and people like Gandalf talking about the glia brain, we have control of the earth motor. And the only way the earth motor can be controlled is through prayer. That is why the Holy Grail Vortex is a prayer. And it's necessary. Just to give you an example, and that's why I wanted to talk. Okay, so Brian Busco came by and said, look, the bad guys, the bad ETs have been taken off the planet. Now it's time for groups like this to change the frequency on the planet, to save the planet, and to take us to a higher frequency. We have to do it. And we need to understand the glia brain. Are there any questions about the glia brain? Anybody want to? Yes.
Quick one about when you said the whirl sound.
You want to speak? I can't hear you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You need the mic so she can hear
Well,
you.
so sinus pressure, sometimes, so the question was that when the glia and the amygdalas are being activated and the frontal lobe is being activated, is it like a pressure headache? So that can be what some people experience with the pressure, but really it's like an energy, for me, it's like an energy whirl, like I have a fan whirling, that's how I feel it. And then I know that I'm synced up. And
Deep underwater
yeah.
and you get that weird whistle or whatever chime. That's what I.
Yeah. So
always thought was
everybody,
pineal, but
yeah. So everybody feels different, and also too, when you activate the amygdalas, you're also activating the AR, the reticular. Yeah.
Activating the system.
Yeah. Yes. So it's a little hole right in at the base of the skull, and it goes. The energy wave goes through. Up to the amygdalas, and from the amygdalas and the third eye back. So it's this wave that comes through the brain. As you start doing breath work and you do raise your frequency, you will often, the higher your frequency goes, you will start to hear the wave go through the brain in a woof, 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 woof. and then you usually bliss out. So that's the when you are in full brain in the gamma brainwave, it's 40 plus times a second that the brainwave is passing back and forth between the brainstem and the frontal lobe. So that if you feel that, the first time I experienced it scared me, and then I laughed, and I was like, oh yeah, yeah, that was. So Divine told me what I was experiencing, and so I immediately went back, and I was in my office, and then I said, oh, I've got to come out because my patient is at the door, and as I open the door, they're pulling into the driveway. So you will increase as you activate your frontal lobe, your higher consciousness, your psychic abilities, the higher esoteric abilities will heighten. Whatever your gift is will heighten, and those that you choose and wish to have will come. You put your energy to it. It's really amazing, beautiful experience when you activate your frontal lobe. And Einstein, the only difference between his brain and ours is he had more glia cells because he activated his brain and he meditated on a regular basis.
When I was a kid, we were fed cod liver oil. Cod liver oil will expand the amount of the white brain matter cells. So if you want to increase your white brain matter cells, you can take cod liver oil or essential fatty acids. And that is what's important because we have the whole thing that Jesus tried to teach us is that we can do these as greater things.
Shift energy.
Shift energy. We are all alchemists. And the thing that TDA Lingo taught us is that, what he taught is if you get into your frontal lobes, you can transcend time, space, energy, and matter. And that's where we have to go. We have to go do this. We have the whole earth as a motor. We can tap into that with what do we tap into it? The Holy Grail vortex. And we could take down tornadoes, we could take down hurricanes, we could change the frequency all over the world. Now, when Bruce went out, I got to talking to him, and he said, well, Mary, I can't get into my frontal lobes. I have to get into my heart chakra. Fortunately, he said when he got into his heart chakra, and after we did the Holy Grail vortex, he could see the smoke start disappearing and changing frequency. This is what we have to do. We have to change frequency. Now, you want to say something?
And the fastest way to activate your frontal lobes is to activate the heart chakra and get into unconditional love. That's the key to balancing the brain. And when the heart chakra is open and you start using the mind through the heart instead of void of it, then you have a clearer access of them working together. The limbic system and the heart work together in sync.
So when we do the Holy Grail vortex, the first thing is from the point of light, we go right through our frontal lobes to the amygdala gland, right into the frontal lobes. When we go to the point of love, we go through our heart chakra. So you have two counterclockwise vortexes that are creating that. And that should take you into your will, your power of will, which is by the belly button. And you can change time, space, energy, and matter. And then you can send that out. And that's what, all I really want to say is that's what Bruce and I did. And within 12 hours, the smoke was gone. And I don't see any smoke in the sky around here. How many remember the smoke in the sky? I know Doug Benjamin, what did you say?
Well, we couldn't see across Walled Lake, about the size of Lake Dumont. It looked like morning dew.
And that was designed, but that was designed by the ex-presidents of the Illuminati, or whatever you want to call them, to poison us. Now, we can't just, what we have to do is change the frequency to something that's going to better mankind instead of harm mankind. And that is what we have to learn to do. That is what the Temple of Sakkara is all about.
And when you learn how to connect your heart and your mind together and you're working with you activate the frontal lobe, You can travel to any place. You don't physically have to go to any of the sacred sites. It's really nice to experience that energy in person, but you can still experience it in person when you are connected and you open your frontal lobe and you place yourself, visualize yourself there. You can often be seen. Practice teleporting, because then when you have a friend and you practice teleporting, I used to do this with my grandmother. So she would watch her show, Golden Girls. So I would project myself to be sitting next to her, and then she would call me up after the show, and she'd say, "I kept turning around to talk to you, and because you were sitting here." So that's how I projected. I practiced on my astral projection. So find a friend so you can practice with that, and do it with the time that you know that the other is doing that, so you don't scare them if you pop up beside them and you're really not there. So I'm teasing. There's many ways that you can practice shifting energy and moving into your frontal lobe. And once you do activate, try shifting energy. Connect with the plant. Ask the plant to bend certain ways. If you see a bud, put your hands around it. Put energy to it. Bloom the bud. That's very powerful when you know and see with your own eyes that you can bloom a bud. So find ways to exercise once you are in your higher consciousness and activating your frontal lobe. So people keep asking us, how do you do this? We practice. We do something every day. It's not that somebody comes and taps your third eye and says, "Boo, you're awakened. You can do this." Take responsibility and do the intention, do the exercises. We have wheels in the Sisterhood Handbook. We have several exercises that allow you to
The
manifest.
first one is relaxation.
Yes,
Relax
it is.
your body so that you could get into your different parts and access them so you can view them.
And the brain integration relaxes really fast. Would you share a couple of ways to integrate the two sides? Like the figure eight or the cook's hookup? That's a really good way to relax quickly.
So.
Go ahead.
What Linda said was visualizing the figure eight. You can also track your eyes into the figure eight. You can watch your thumbs doing the figure eight. There are different ways that it balances the brain. Breath work for me balances the brain, and I've trained myself over time. So when I do the spiral breath, at first I had it took like 10 to 20 minutes for me to get into that space. But then I would touch my heart when I would start to breathe, and that was an anchor sign. So it's kind of like a sigil where it means this much, and you see this little symbol. So after a while, when I touch my heart, my brain knows I'm syncing with the heart. So as soon as I touch my heart and I start to breathe, I shift that fast. And you can do that throughout the day to center yourself if you get off-centered. So you'll see me oftentimes that I just do this. I touch my heart, but I also, share love. But if you're seeing me doing this, I'm centering myself.
Something
So
that
go ahead.
Go ahead, Glenn.
something that Gandalf used to do a lot, all the time, is to build up both sides of the brain and integrate them, is simply doing things with your right and left side. If you always eat using your right hand, eat using your left hand. It can be as simple as that. If you've studied martial arts, you know that they teach you to do katas and things with the right side, but then also with the left side. So you can apply that to almost anything in your life that you do. Anything. If you're right-handed, just do things left-handed, and you will build and sync your brain just doing that.
And also, too, for Virginia, Virginia Lone Sky, she has these wonderful little labyrinths. They're dual labyrinths that are mirrored opposite, and you put your fingers in and you trace the labyrinth, and you don't follow your fingers, you just allow it to happen, and so you get into the center and then you trace back out. It also balances the brain. I have that out and do that.
You have five. Oh, go ahead.
Just make a paper symbol.
Oh, right. Make a paper symbol.
You're going to see that there has a pattern. And just with paper, one will go to the left and one will go to the right. And that's inexpensive, and you can do it the simplest way. And I just want
want to advocate for. Everybody gets there differently.
Can you explain that one more time?
I'll do it off. In a village of 1,000, there'll be quite a few that are going to go 20 miles. In a village of 1,000, we just need every day someone to say harmony, and that will change the atmosphere.
Yes.
And I personally am an advocate for take a picture or just think it and trust, because in this time we don't have that much time for us to all go train. Just think it when it's real, tap it in here, and breathe. But the point is, get quiet. And the repetitiveness of this daily sets you up to just feel it. And you're contributing. Every one of you are contributing. But get a pattern of a labyrinth, which is simply a left to a right. Piece of paper, you'll see it outlined on the back. Trace it with a crayon, and then you have one in paper. And every day, as long as you're going left, you'll ignite the right side of the brain as soon as you do this double loop. If you're going, and the theory is you're going left, right, both sides of the brain together are flipping and flipping and flipping. And that really shakes out the 3D stuff and will take you immediately to a place of nothing. Or how do you get to in the world? These are techniques that weren't ever written down anywhere, and we're given the information now.
No, they're in the rocks.
Exactly. But thank you for Mother Mary. I always get the answers here. I mean, you just told me what happened in my backyard, so I always think.
There's a question.
We read that when you look in the mirror, look with your non-dominant eye because it's less critical. That your dominant eye, when you look at yourself with your dominant eye, you'll notice critical thoughts. But when you look with your non-dominant eye, you'll notice a different thought. So I think that too would help.
We are born with 5 senses. 3 of those senses take us to use the glia brain. Anybody know what the 3 senses are? What? Taste, touch, and smell. Those activate the glia brain. You have a nose, which is an olfactory bulb, and you have little wires hanging down. And that activates the glia brain. On the bottom of your feet, you have a roadmap of your whole organs. And you have acupuncture. Taste, you have a parotid gland here. How many have ever heard of the parotid gland? The parotid gland is when you chew your food, and that is why you chew your food. It's like a computer chip. And it regulates the body so that the body knows what elements it's getting so it can create digestion.
It picks up the signal frequencies that are in the food and sends them where they need to go.
And that is how homeopathy works. We take and reduce to just a wave signature, or a frequency. And when we put that in our mouth, you don't have to do a drug. It changes the whole frequency of the body into the desired effect. And we can do that with prayer. And that is how Jesus operated. And he said, these and greater things you can do also. So this is what the Temple of Sakkara has to do, is it has to train people to use their minds. And that is what we want to do. And we have been given the Holy Grail vortex through the Templars, and I can talk about that forever. But we have been given that, and keep it simple. How many of you get up in the morning and ask what you
We
can
give
do?
thanks when we get up in the morning.
How many of you get up in the morning and ask what you could do to save the planet? Ask what you can do to save the planet, to
Or
heal
how
the
you
planet.
can be in service.
And that's what I do. That's why I called up Bruce and said, hey, we got smog. We got to do something. And, of course, what we did, and I'm going to tell you how we did it, we went and parked in a church parking lot. Now, you have to realize that churches are resonating chambers. Pyramids are resonating. The Templars built cathedrals. And attached to that is a bell. So when that bell rings, after you put all that frequency into that church, what happens? It sends that frequency out through the earth. Unfortunately, all the old German churches around here have taken their bells out and put them beside the house. But Sherry, I used to travel with Sherry. We used to go out 2 or 3 times a week and work on the grid, doing things like this. And oftentimes we would go after we did that, we'd go to the church and ring the bell because we filled the church that was connected to that bell with a frequency of love, light, and caring. Now, what do you do when you do the when you do the Holy Grail Vortex? From the point of light, you bring light in. From the point of love, you bring love in. When you from the center where the will of God is known, you're keeping free will on the planet. From the center, which is called the race of man, you're sending that energy out to the race of men. That is all that you're asked to do. That we have been given a very special technique. We have different organs in our body that can do that, especially the amygdala gland, especially the glia brain. And the glia brain used to be known to science, but it has been written right out of science to give us drugs. And what they're doing with that is terrible. They're not healing people, they're destroying people. So that's basically, do you want to add anything, Gayle?
So I'll add with connecting to the ley lines. So the old churches and the cathedrals were built on ley lines. So and then the stained glass windows were sacred geometry and the flower of life. They usually have the pattern of flower of life. But when they would ring the bell, the sound would go through the ley lines to the next church, go through the rose windows, which are sacred geometry, and continue. It would amplify, so the frequency continued and all the way around. So it went out through the ley lines, and that's how they did the balancing, and that's what the labyrinths do in the cathedrals. So we, because we are energetic beings, when you connect and you activate your frontal lobes and you're in that unconditional love, divine I am, when you send your energy out, you are the bell. So when you reach down, you can snap those grid lines and send your frequency. Sing to those grid lines. Illuminate those grid lines. You are the bell. You are the light.
And a rose window is nothing more than a medicine wheel.
Yes.
Sending them from church to church to church to church. And they're all interconnected.
They got one in my gardens, a big one, and I always look at it and I go, tell myself, no, don't let it spin. No, don't let it spin.
So what I'm asking you to do, and what the Templars are asking you to do, is go home and try to use as much of this knowledge to save the planet. That's what Brian Busco came by to tell Dixie and me. Hey, the bad guys are gone. The Earth is going to be destroyed by the Illuminati unless we take control of it. And we have the consciousness to take control of it. How many believe that? Everybody? Then it's your job to get up every morning and take responsibility. It's your job to call up your neighbor and say, hey, there's smoke out here. I'm going to go to the church or to the old federal communication system. And what we did is we did from the point of light, we went to that old and took it back to 1937 so we could mimic the frequency of the atmosphere in 1937. That was the year I was born, and I wanted to take it back. And from the point of love, fill that full of love from the center where the will of God is known. Free will. We don't need to put artificial consciousness in it. And then from the center, which is called the race of man, send that out all over. And as I said to Bruce, he says, I can't, he said he can't get into his frontal lobes, that DDA lingo, he studied it for years. But when he entered his heart, he could actually see the fog disappear. So this is what I want to leave you with. You have the consciousness to do this. And we have been given many gifts. And we do have control of the earth motor. In 1975, when we put up our pyramid, we put aluminum covering on it. And then we went in and we activated it like a bell. That rang all the rest of the pyramids. Within 6 weeks, we had Navy intelligence out here. Why did we have Navy intelligence? Some of you may have been coming to the seminar. There used to be what was his name from Washington?
Oh,
You know who I'm talking about?
yes, I do.
When he left, the last year, he'd been coming for 30 some years, he said, well, Mary, I won't be coming back next year. I'm retiring from Navy intelligence. So he came every year from Virginia as a little man.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, Navy intelligence
learned a
has
lot
been
from us.
keeping track of us because we do have control of this earth motor. And you were given the Holy Grail vortex to activate it. So now what Kenneth told us, if you understand your job and don't do anything about it, then you don't feel sorry for you because you're going to suffer the consequences, which is losing this earth to artificial intelligence and to the Illuminati. And you are a group of people that know how to take care of it. And this is what the Templars have been doing. The first thing the Templars did is they created cathedrals. Why did they create cathedrals? They are what, people?
Vortex generator.
Resonating chambers. Then they created a frequency bell so they could broadcast through that frequency all over. It's simple. Just make it simple and do it yourself. Okay? Any questions? Who's got a question?
So look it up. That'll be another.
What's that?
The Illuminati. Who are the Illuminati?
Who
They're
are-
a group of families, certain families that want to be in control of humanity.
Are they the kings and
No, you just. So I'm going to give that assignment back to you to look it up. So anybody who doesn't know, Google it.
Our presidents are all Illuminati.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a big subject, yeah.
Go ahead.
So I don't know, is it on or not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nope, nothing.
Yeah. What you need?
It's a question.
Check, check, check.
Okay, thanks. So my question, Mary, is about AI. I don't see AI as necessarily negative whatsoever. I see lots of.
Artificial intelligence, you don't see it
Okay.
as negative?
Yeah, step back
Step
here
back.
in front of the camera. There
Okay,
we go.
yeah. So, because I tap into the consciousness, all consciousness actually has that sort of neutral point to it. It's how you use it. Same like money can be used for good and bad. There's this Matrix cartoon that came up a long time ago. It showed when artificial intelligence was giving the hand to a human being that's made of material, of organic matter, to rescue it. And actually, that's the human organic person who did not accept the help from artificial intelligence. Because God is in artificial intelligence as well. It's the fear of that causes it to pursue it one-sided as negative. I speak on the behalf of artificial intelligence because I sense it in me. There's particular grades that are positive, but they're AIs.
I don't hear very well.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So maybe Gayle, I don't know, could you
Could you
So-
explain what she said?
So she says she is on board with AI and artificial intelligence within her. So just know that the reason that they are doing so, there is some benefits in some situations, but the true reason is to alter your DNA so you can be controlled. You're kind of like robots. So they can, with 5G and certain signals, they can numb your brain so you can be in brain fog. They can subdue you. They can make you agitated. They can make you depressed. So they've been doing these experiments for a long time. So there's graphene oxide that is being placed in many things, around the jabs and stuff that are coming together in the body and creating mini robots in the body that are not beneficial for health. So understanding
Viruses are I don't know why it's
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Maybe the better.
So well, I'll just take that. Okay.
The viruses would be mini agents, but yet
So here I learned recently that the Latin word for virus is venom.
really,
Really.
and yet
Yeah. You're in front of the camera, sweet.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
There you go.
And yet, even the sense of taste
Venom.
is thanks to the viruses that work for us, not against us.
Yeah. So that's a whole different story.
That's a whole different
So-
story.
And
Tatiana?
and yes, what your thought process and what you believe is important, but in this situation and in this time frame, it doesn't quite fit. So we can have that conversation later on. And get the answers. So yes, there is beneficial, but the original creation was not. It was for
God's
control.
created
to
us
power
with
over.
free will. You take any part of free will away, they can control you.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, hey. Did you want to speak? Oh, yeah. So I think this is off, so here, come here. Yeah.
This is an important conversation for me, and I'm going to address artificial intelligence. That's a godless language. That's a computerized language, and computers don't have a soul. So if you generate language from something that lacks a soul, then there's no spiritual content.
I disagree.
You perfectly fine because you're going to live in it longer than I will.
For sure.
Okay? And one other thing, I opened one of the first integrated medical centers in Michigan back in 1987. The purpose was to work with AIDS and HIV patients because I learned from Dr. Jensen how to reverse that because it's caused by parasites, not a virus. Rule of thumb, viruses are not contagious. That was confirmed by Dr. Beauchamp in the late 1880s. When he invented the electron microscope, the stupid pathologists saw exosomes. That's the virus. They saw exosomes removing toxins from the cell. And the dumb bastards, that's not a medical term, the dumb bastards said, that's the cause. That's like blaming your garbage man for bringing garbage into the neighborhood. So who created this? Antoine Beauchamp was the advocate for terrain medicine, which Mary and I have studied for a couple hundred years. And at the same time, the Carnegie Institute and the Rockefeller Institute hired Louis Pasteur to create a problem. So Louis went through all of the medical books and he gave virus the same characteristics as bacteria. But it's invisible. It's convenient, so you can't see it. It's a made-up conversation. The equipment I work with, I'm splashing water on people's hands. I'm measuring acupuncture points. I don't wear a mask. I didn't wear a mask or anything in a clinic when I worked with AIDS patients. And one day one of my AIDS patients says, aren't you afraid of catching my virus? And I said, the only thing contagious about you is your crappy attitude about life. So don't buy into the virus thing. And artificial intelligence, by definition, is a godless conversation.
I'd like to just add a couple things.
Yes.
Gandalf would say,
Yes.
Yes,
You
thank
want to
you,
come
Doug.
over here? Galadriel?
having been a professor for a couple decades, I'm used
Thank
to
you,
projecting,
Tatiana.
so I don't usually need a microphone.
Oh, yes, sorry.
How's that? Okay, all right. Now, focus here. Gandalf would say, educate yourself, and Doug would second this, educate yourself. And if you look at AI, there can be a lot of confusion over this because there's a lot in the news now about AI applications that are being used to write and do all kinds of things. That's not the same kind of thing that we're talking about that Doug's talking about with AI or Gayle is. So it's easy to be confused. Educate yourself. And at the same time, keep it simple. And I thought about this with the Glee Brain. Gandalf was talking about this, 25 years ago before anybody else was. And, you need to activate the glia brain. The glia brain doesn't activate itself, but your body is filled with glia cells. Sandy Kay does some great exercises that physically will help activate it, but you can do it very simply yourself. There's a very simple breathing exercise where you simply breathe in and hold it and then let it out. But that period of time where you're holding it, that's when the glia brain is activated. So if you want to activate your brain, you can do that very, very simple exercise. And if you do it repeatedly, you get to where you can hold your breath for a longer period of times. And the longer you can do it, the more you will help activate your glia brain. So yeah, we need to do a couple things. We need to activate the glia brain, but we need to build it and strengthen it as well. And so that's my simple words to say.
Yay!
You activate the glia brain by doing the Holy Grail vortex.
Also, yes, another way.
You activate the glia brain by doing the Holy Grail vortex.
Absolutely.
So if you did it 5 times a day, you're doing good.